So the essence of the Dharma is really the essence of the mystery of life, is the essence of the fundamental nature of this existence. Most of you are, most of us, if not all of us, are called to having a deeper understanding of what the hell we're doing here, to put it in colloquial terms. So I was going to talk about something else, but I'm going to start with this and see where it leads. When I was 14 years old, I was living with my parents, as most of us were when we were 14. They were really starting to bug me. Anyway, I grew up in Scarborough, and there was a newspaper, the Toronto Star. And in those days, on Saturday, they had a magazine, a picture magazine that was like Life, if you've seen the Life magazine. So it was a photojournalistic magazine that was, like it was the size of a magazine. And I don't know how many pages. It wasn't that thick. It came out every Saturday. Well, one Saturday morning, I'm in the living room in Scarborough, not expecting anything that exciting to happen, as I led a pretty boring existence. And I open up this magazine, and there's an article about a monastery in Nepal called Kopan. And it's a Tibetan monastery outside of Kathmandu, in the Kathmandu Valley, where young Westerners were going and discovering the Dharma, discovering Buddhism. And they were going there and doing retreats and practicing. And I had never heard of anything like this ever. Why would I? I grew up in a Catholic household. And there was something about this article that completely turned me on. I got so excited. And as I look back on it, I realized there was a change in my state of mind, but I didn't really know what it was. I couldn't even name it. But there was this immense excitement that such a place existed. And within my own being, there was a quality of a spaciousness or an awareness that seemed to play out for 3 or 4 days. And I was so blown away by it, as you are when you're 14, when you start to have some of those big life experiences. Anyway, I didn't really know what to do with it, and I just got on with my 14-year-old life, moved on. But I always remembered that experience. And another experience that I had around that time, I was riding the bus in Scarborough, and there were two guys. I can't remember if they were behind me or in front of me. I think maybe they sat a couple rows in front of me. And they were young men. I don't know how old they were. They were maybe 19 or 23, something like that. But they were a few years older than me. And they had just been somewhere in Toronto. And they were talking about where they had been and the ideas that were being discussed. And I really couldn't make much sense of what they were talking about. But again, I had this experience that whatever they were saying was something I really wanted to check out. But more so than that, it put me in a different state of mind. I was in this, it's like I heard the words, but the meaning behind the words struck me, but I couldn't tell you what that meaning was. But I think it was one of my first real true tastes of hearing the Dharma. But it put me into this altered state. And again, for a few days. And at that time, it was probably 1970, between 1970 and 1972. And so there were teachers, there was a couple of teachers in Toronto, but one of them, of course, was Namgyal Rinpoche, Ananda Bodhi, who became one of my principal teachers. And I think these guys were coming from an Ananda Bodhi class. Before he was Namgyal Rinpoche, he was Ananda Bodhi. He was a bhikkhu that was ordained in the Burmese tradition. And I can't really prove it, but I think they had been touched by the Dharma and, let's say, touched by the mystery, some sort of mystery, and they were discussing it, but they were still in that state and rumbling along the McCowan 67 in Scarborough, riding the bus, holding the seat in front of you, looking around. And all of a sudden, you had a glimpse of the infinite. And I didn't even have a transfer. I should have asked the bus driver for a transfer. Hey, I want to go here. Anyway, it was all very strange. It was all very strange. And of course, you're just involved in your 14 or 15-year-old life, doing your thing, trying to stay out of jail. Keep one step ahead of the coppers. And so there was these openings, and I couldn't put them anywhere. There was no place for me to put them. And so then, and then one thing led to the other, and I started to travel. And actually, that's not true. Somebody, about a year or two after that, introduced me to a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And that was actually, that's not true. It's memory. Before that, I think a classmate had the book by Ram Dass, Be Here Now. So that was the first book. And then somebody else gave me or told me about Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, which is a classic, Shunryu Suzuki. If you've not read it, or if it's not on your shelf, I recommend you go out and buy it. That's it right there. That's it right there. So Jim's holding it up. So where I'm going with this, I'll be interested to find out. But it's, you know, what we're doing here is we're opening up, and each in our own way, to the mystery, to a more profound understanding of this life. And you know, those experiences that I had, when I look back on it now, they were very direct, pure experiences with no framework. And you know, maybe I could have become a Christian, maybe I could have become a this, maybe I could have become a that. But it seemed that my karma, if you will, my path was already chosen for me, and I got involved in the Buddha Dharma. But the first experiences were the Dharma. And so in these classes, to the best of my ability, I'm trying to open you up and share with you the Dharma. And what you hear and the shifts that take place in your heart and the directions that will open up for you will be yours to have. But you have to be open. And you have to be willing to keep moving. And now you have the opportunity. There's lots of opportunity with teachers and retreats and books and things online. But if you have opened up, if you have had a taste of that profundity, then it's really, really important that you continue on the path. But it's equally important to know that the path is your path. And as long as you remain with strong intention and a willingness not to be satisfied with being stuck, and the courage to step off the curb, then you're going to land where it is you need to land. You will. So I just find that really interesting, you know, and you can sort of make up narratives, if you will, on why I had those experiences. But it's more, the Dharma is always here. It's always here. It's always waiting for us. And it's important that we don't get so lost in the everydayness of our life that we put aside the mystery. And so as our practice develops, then we begin to be able to see that mystery throughout the day. So, and that's what these practices are for, is to keep us moving forward. And you know the line I like to say, those who know me, that if you do the work, the universe will meet you halfway. Those are two examples right there. And I'm sure many of you here have your own stories of a similar nature. And then, of course, I was in Bodh Gaya. I traveled to India and in Varanasi. I didn't really know what I was doing in Asia. I was just traveling. In Varanasi, a Theravadan monk walked past me, stopped, opened up his robe, and handed me an orange. And I know within my heart, since a young age, there was a deep yearning, but didn't know what that was for. So it's important that we keep this alive. And it's important that we cultivate it. And all of the practices that you do in your lifetime will not be lost. You grow. You grow that intention. You grow your relationship with the mystery. So also, you know, and I've had times with teachers, with being with very accomplished teachers, where I had a conversation with them, and they put me into a place that I didn't understand what they were saying, because they took me past the words. They took me past the meaning of the words. And when I walked out of the room, if you had asked me, what did they say to you? 30 seconds later, I couldn't tell you. And that was when I was young and my brain still worked. But when the mystery gets exposed to you, whether it's on a bus in Scarborough or a newspaper magazine or from the mouth of a teacher or perhaps a dream, it's pointing to something that is beyond any description. And for me, the Buddha Dharma is the best framework to help me grow and develop on the path. But the Buddha didn't teach Buddhism. He taught Dharma. So just keep that in mind. And what is your path? What's moving you forward? You know, but the profound part of the story, of course, is not that it happened to me. Is that this is the way it works. This is the way it works. So we continue on with the practices. We continue on with this path of purification. We continue on with this path of mindfulness. And we gradually deepen our relationship to this mystery that's beyond words, that's beyond ideas. No matter how young you are, no matter how old you are, it doesn't matter. The time to do the practice is now, and you're doing it now. Anything that happened in the past doesn't matter. The mystery is alive and well. It doesn't know time. It doesn't know time. We get caught up in time, in the concept of time, but it doesn't know time. I've heard people say, "Oh, I wish I wish I had started this journey when I was younger." It's just a concept. It's just an idea. The mystery is always there, waiting for us to connect with it. Who knows? Maybe in my past life, I didn't start to practice till I was 95. And then I practiced really hard for 6 months. And the next thing I know, I'm on a bus in Scarborough. So this mystery, this underlying truth, if you will, this spontaneous arising of compassion and awareness and love, it's already here. There's this idea of, there's an image of cleaning the mirror, dusting the mirror. And so the practice of purification, the practice of mindfulness is constantly, actually, that's not the image I want to use. This idea of cleaning a window. The other one is another one. But this idea of cleaning a window. So we're cleaning the dirt and the grime off the window. We're cleaning our perception, right? Our conditioning. We're cleaning the dust, what creates our clinging and our ignorance and our suffering. We're cleaning that. But it's not, the window's always the window's always the window. We're not changing the window. The mystery is always the mystery. It's always there. We're not improving the window. We aren't improving the clarity. We're not improving awareness. It's already there, whether it's got grime on it or not. When I was on that bus, when I was looking at that magazine for a moment, the window was clear. was like, wow, that exists. That exists.